Okay, I'd like to get into interpolation and extrapolation a little bit deeper now. We went over it a little bit, but I'm going to start out with a demonstration of a text slam animation. To do that, we're going to customize a Bezier interpolation. Bezier is the default in Blender. It's the same as Easy Ease in After Effects. It starts out sort of slowly accelerating and then decelerating and coming to a smooth end. For a slam, that's inappropriate. That's not gonna do it. So we have to tweak this Bezier interpolation. And then I want to go over an example where you'd use linear interpolation, which is a constant speed the entire time, no acceleration or deceleration. And for that, I'll have a clock hand smoothly rotating. And then for the third main type of interpolation, constant, I'm going to use a ticking clock hand to illustrate that. Constant interpolation holds the value of one keyframe until it gets to the point in the timeline where the second keyframe comes up, and then it snaps to the value of that second keyframe. So ticking is appropriate demonstration. And then extrapolation we'll go over. There's three types for that as well: constant, linear, and cyclic. The default is constant, where after the last keyframe the animation stops. With linear, it can continue beyond the last keyframe, going at the same speed it was going at. And then cyclic, you can set up a series of keyframes and then hit cyclic, and it'll repeat those that series of keyframes to infinity. Alright, so let's open up Blender real quick and show you this. We'll start with a text slam animation. Just going to clear this out. Now I'm going to add a piece of text. Now first, before we continue, the text origin point is at the lower left. We want it to be in the middle, and we also want the text to be in the middle. So the origin point is good where it is. I want to center the geometry of the text around the origin. Origin is like anchor point in After Effects. So like right now we're rotating around the origin and also scaling around the origin and moving, and that's not what we want. So under Object, Transform, Geometry to Origin. That does what we want there. There's also a hotkey, I'll just undo to show you, Control-Shift-Alt-C, Geometry to Origin. If I undo that and show you the other options, Origin to Geometry would move the origin and leave the geometry where it was. And so that's cool too, it centers the rotation, but I want the text in the middle in this case, so I'm going to do it the other way. Geometry to Origin. Alright, now we're at frame 1. I'm going to set my position for the first keyframe, GZ. I drag up, set it way back away from the camera like that, insert with I location, then I'll jump down to fit frame 15 for my endpoint, and with the N as in Nancy key, I'm going to open up the attributes of the text object, including the location coordinates. And you see, as we moved it back with the GZ, we got back in negative territory, negative 43. I want to bring that back to 0, because that's where we came from. Insert location. So you just have some more precise control over here. I could have just dragged it up with GZ, but I want it to be there. Alright, so now I'm going to get ready to preview it. I can drag through here and you see the change in position, but I'm going to Alt-A to get more of a real-time preview. And before I do that, I like to isolate my timeline to the range, to just this part of the animation, but leave a little bit after the last keyframe so it can rest a bit. So E to end that range of the timeline, and then Alt-A. Alright, so it's coming in, landing, and then staying for a little bit, and then looping. So we can see the effect of the Bezier. It's an easy ease. It's coming to a smooth end. So we want to slam, so that's not appropriate for what we need. So I'm going to Alt-A again to stop that preview. Now if I change our window setup from default to animation, we have this nice preset window setup here with a dope sheet, and I'll use the decimal key and the number pad to zoom in here. And also down on the graph editor at decimal, and let me just drag this up. I like the graph editor a little bigger. So here we have it. If I Alt-A again, you can see from this side view kind of the text slamming up towards the camera. Let's change this to camera view and zoom in. Okay, so we see it coming in, and you see the Bezier curve now. So let me open up location. There's X, Y, and Z location keyframes, but I'm only affecting the Z. It's just that when you add a location keyframe, it bundles it all together. It's a package deal. You get X, Y, and Z. But I want to isolate for this purpose of tweaking the Z. I want to, let me Alt-A to stop this. I want to hide, by clicking these eye icons, I can hide the X and Y. Now all I see is the Z. That's very convenient. Now if I hover on the graph editor and hit the T key, that's the hotkey for setting the keyframe interpolation. So we have the submenu here. These are the three main types: constant, linear, Bezier. So it's Bezier right now, and we see how it easy eases. Okay, it's got to be right over the graph part. T, again, I'll change it to linear, and we'll just Alt-A to play that down. Okay, now there's no deceleration or slowing at the end. It's just a constant speed the entire way. No speeding up, no slowing down, just one speed. That's what linear gets you. So let me go T to the third type, constant, and you see it's like a step shape now. It's going to stay at this value and then jump to that value. So it just kind of pops there. So so far none of these are appropriate for our slam effect. So in order to customize the interpolation, we should T again and change to Bezier. Bezier is the only interpolation mode you can tweak because we have these handles here. The other type, it's always going to be constant or linear. You can't tweak it. So with these handles, I'm going to bend them down to start up to make it more of a linear. And that's Alt-A that. Alright, so it's pretty much a constant speed. But beyond making it sort of a constant speed from the get-go and not easing at the end, I want it to actually speed up at the end to exaggerate the slam effect. So if I drag this to the right, now this is curving towards the end of the animation, upwards, and the steeper it is, the faster it is. So just right there, let's Alt-A again. Yep, and you see right at the end there, it goes whoosh, it kind of slams in. And yeah, I do goofy sound effects, but I think it helps. Whoosh, right there, okay? So there's a little S introduced when we move this. So I want to reduce that by tweaking this handle. And if I extend this handle or shrink it, it changes what we have here. I think if you extend this, it's going to speed up dramatically just at the end. Oops, undo that. Okay. So it's Alt-A. Okay, slam. That's a pretty convincing slam right there. Okay. And then I'll just show you what I did with another project here. In order to sell that even further, I added some shake keyframes on the camera. So here we have some X and Y keyframes, and they're just going up and down, and then sort of coming to a rest to simulate that shake. Bam. So between customizing the interpolation of the text object and then adding these nice shape acting keyframes on the camera, we have a pretty convincing slam. Okay, for part 2 of this, I have a clock hand that I'm going to rotate using linear interpolation to make a smooth, constant speed interpolation. So I just quickly mocked up a clock hand model here, and you see if I rotate it, it rotates like this, like you'd expect. So I'm going to go back to frame 1, and I'm going to set a rotation keyframe. Now, I'm going to have it rotate about, let's say 90 degrees over 60 frames. What the heck? 61, alright. From 1 to 61 is 60 frames. It's not crucial. Rotate 90, enter. Alright, and then I for insert rotation. So I can drag and you see it rotating, right? Now let me go beyond the end a little bit and E to limit my timeline here, and I can Alt-A to preview it. Now it's defaulting to Bezier, so you see that it slowly starts going and then accelerates and then it decelerates or slows down at the end. Totally inappropriate for a clock hand, which should be a constant move. So I'll open up this animation window again and decimal this part. We're only interested in the Z rotation, so I'm hiding everything else. T linear. Now shift left arrow to the beginning. Get back into camera view. Alt-A to play it. Now it's a constant speed, just like you'd expect for a clock. Alright, so that's linear interpolation. Nice and easy, just hover on the graph editor, T, change it to linear. Now, it stops there. We could have it continue beyond there by changing the extrapolation with Shift-E and make it a linear extrapolation, and now see how the slope just changed, it just extended. So now if I Alt-A, let's go back to the beginning. It's approaching the second keyframe, and look, oh, it keeps going. And in fact, if I Alt-A here, I'm going to extend this out by dragging past there and hitting E and make it longer. Shift left arrow to start. Alt-A, and it'll keep going and going and going as long as you want, at a constant speed. So that's a linear interpolation and a linear extrapolation together. All right. Now let's look at a third type of interpolation, constant interpolation. We'll do this by animating a ticking clock hand to illustrate. So with the same clock hand, I'm in frame 1. I'm first going to insert a rotation keyframe. Now I want to go a second into the future. Because this is set up at 24 frames a second, I know I have to go 24 frames from here. Since I'm at frame 1, I have to add 24 to that. So we'll go to 25. That's exactly a second into the future. Now I will hover over the 3D view and R6 enter to rotate exactly 6 degrees. So I know 1 second is exactly 6 degrees. And before I do anything else, don't forget to insert a rotation keyframe. Now we saw this turn to yellow up here. This is the N menu, the properties menu, and it says -6. I'm not sure why it's minus, but it doesn't matter. We know we got what we want. So now let me go back to the beginning and Alt-A. So it's not a tick at all, and it's Bezier, so it's accelerating and decelerating. So this isn't anything what we want, but at least the keyframe values are correct, 0 and 6 over 1 second time. So to get the ticking effect, let me hide X and Y. I will change the interpolation of this rotation using the T key and choosing constant. Now the animation curve has changed to a step shape. And I'll go back, hit Alt-A, tick. Alright, so that's what constant interpolation gets you. It holds the value of this keyframe all the way until it gets all the way up to the frame. Then it changes in an instant. It just pops to that second value, or the value of this keyframe. And then I could just go down to 49, which is 25 plus 24, and rotate 6 again, R6 enter, I rotation. Now we have a keyframe there as well. So tick, tock. Alright, and you'd have to keep going like this. I happen to know the next second, 74. R6 enter, I rotation, and let me go back to the beginning, Alt-A, tick, tock, tick. Alright, so that's constant interpolation. One last note on interpolation before I move on to extrapolation. Blender has some presets built in. If I hit T here, we went over constant linear Bezier for interpolation modes, right? Over in the far right, dynamic effects, back, bounce, and elastic. Let's check these out. So back, let's check out Alt-A to, whoa, okay, whoa. Okay, see now the camera's shaking. Just to visualize this text animation interpolation, I'm going to disable the camera shake. I'm going to select the camera, and with the speaker icon, I can mute the effects of those keyframes. Whew, alright, that's better. So now we're just seeing the text. I'm going to select the text. You can do all this hot while it's rolling in preview. It's pretty crazy. Now text is selected. You can see the graph now. It goes beyond where the second keyframe is. In this case, closer to the camera and then back. Okay, so that's where it gets its name, back. So it's a useful little preset. Let's go to bounce. Boom, boom, boom. So it does what it promises. It's a bounce. You can see the graph here. And then T again to elastic. Okay, so it's just an elastic stop. It's pretty subtle, this one, but it's nice to have these presets. Bounces, I've used the bounce type of effect quite a bit, and back is useful once in a while. So it's nice to have these little presets here. So let's move on to extrapolation. We actually covered constant extrapolation already. That's the default, where the animation stops after the last keyframe, and we covered linear extrapolation in the smoothly rotating clock hand that just went on rotating to infinity. So we'll just go over cyclic now real quick. In Blender, this is the very default type of view. I'm going to go into camera view. I'm going to the cube selected. I'm going to hit GZ -5 enter to push it down 5 units. Insert a location keyframe, and then move forward in time a second to frame 25. GZ10 enter. So now it's 5 above 0. Insert location, and we see it going like that. Now, cyclic extrapolation loops a set of keyframes, so I'm going to return to the same position as the first keyframe in an equal amount of time forward, which I want to be actually frame 49. GZ -10 enter gets us back to that same position. Insert location. Now we have 3 keyframes, up and down, or down, up, down. Those 3 keyframes. those are the ones we're going to now extrapolate cyclically. So I'm going to go to animation again. Here's our keyframes. Shift D to change extrapolation, make cyclic. And see, it just continues that wave now. So if we go back to the beginning, up, down, and even past our last keyframe, it's going up and down. It's repeating that series of keyframes. So pretty cool. If you want something to just, you have a set loop you want it to do and you want to just do it, have it do it forever, you can then change your perspective and it'll still be doing its thing. Whatever, there's a lot of uses for this actually. And let me just illustrate why it's important to have the first and last keyframes be the exact same. If this was different, see that sharp vertical line there? It starts to do some funky stuff. Let me just, well, it doesn't really matter. Snap. So that's not desirable. If they're not exactly the same position, those keyframes, then it gets all messed up. Oh, look, it actually introduced. Oh, look at this. This is fun. Let's just do that for a little bit. So it's jumping in space. That's not realistic. It's probably not what you want. Maybe it is. Who knows? But if you want it to look like it's looping smoothly, you want to not do that. Have the first and last keyframes be exactly the same. Like so. Alright, that's cyclic extrapolation. And that wraps up this video on interpolation extrapolation. I got to move on quickly to masking and the first project. Have a good one. Thanks.